Jesus was born in a particular context. Political, economic, social. And what I find people do here is to assume that the gospel today doesn't address the context we are in today. I sometimes wonder, all these pastors and all the theology we've done, and I hear many are doctors and all that. I wonder, did I go to a different school?
Or do they worship a different
Because
God?
when I read Isaiah, Isaiah is prophesying about the coming of the Savior and how badly the Savior is looking. He's bruised. He's even saying that people had to hide their faces because they didn't want to look at him. He was a weak shoot. And he's talking to a people who are oppressed economically and politically, and he's giving them hope of the tomorrow. But he's addressing also the challenges of their time. Then looking at the book of Titus chapter 2, Titus is saying, make Christianity look good by setting an example. While Isaiah makes Christ look weak or like a servant, Titus is saying, make Christianity look good. And that is an indictment on every Christian to make sure that they represent Christ wherever they are. In my years in the church, one of the things that we have suffered most in Kenya is dichotomizing that matters politics belong there, matters Christian belong here, and they only meet when somebody has a particular interest. And by the way, I need to clarify here and do. The church can use politics to benefit, but also the politics can use church to benefit. So I'm not here to blame either. But as a theologian, I must ask myself, if Christ was born today, what kind of context would he find? If I was preaching that sermon in London, I would have given the London context. Now that I'm in Nairobi, I must speak about our own context. And so that was the basis. So Christmas is not just about celebration, about carol and what the Western have created Christmas to look at. It is actually time when we say Christ is being born, he has no place to lay his head. He is in the stables. And so why should Christ be born in the manger? And Christ is Latif, it's Muga, it's me. It's that poor person there who cannot understand. So what has Christmas to do with me? In this kind of housing, in this kind of taxes, that I can't access food, I'm not sure about the education of my children. That is bringing the gospel right to the village, to the house. And that's how theology works, in my understanding. Jesus did not remain a baby. Jesus grew up.
Yeah.
Jesus preached a gospel of transformation. And for Jesus, the gospel was not just a tool to take people to heaven. I don't know why we keep talking about a heaven we haven't gone. Well, we can't make where we are a heaven we can enjoy. Jesus, if you look at him, he challenged the structures of that time. And I think that's my role as a pastor. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm only saying, hey, hello. And then we need to, now that we are talking about Advent, we are talking about the return of Christ. Not now as Isaiah is presenting him, but now as king and judge. And so let's not think that Christ remained in the manger. Christ grew, rose again, ascended into heaven, and he comes back as a king. That's the message of Advent. In clear terms, this government was made to look as the most godly government. You'll see them in churches.
Made to look by whom?
By themselves. They would sit in churches. And you remember the last time I was here, I was actually challenging the president because he looked like now a pastor. And I told him, hey, guy, we are here. We will do the work of prayer. Don't use prayer now. There's no rain now. You call for prayers. And it's not actually prayers. It's actually some political meeting disguised as a prayer meeting. And I told the president, please leave that. And if you want to attend, leave that for us to organize. Then one time I hear there are prayers in State House, and members of the cathedral are asking me, Provost, you didn't go for prayers. Which ones? And I see all manner of people in State House in the name of praying or cleansing the State House. You know what? You can make prayers private. What is this public display of prayer and Christianity? We actually make Christianity hated by people because they can't understand. The same guys who campaigned showing as if they had all the solution, then they turn around quickly, and it's like now they can't listen to the poor Kenyans. They overtax them. But when you look at the opulence around them, let me give you a quick example. A president is going for a service in a local church somewhere. Look at the motorcade. You wonder, why would you go with 50 cars to a church service? One, it's wasteful. Make the city and the country safe so that you can use two. I actually, in London, meet the king many times in the city. Do you know how many vehicles he has? 2. And 2 outriders only. Only. So how do you go with 100 vehicles to a church? Then your ministers come each with 20. Look at the wastage around the presidency. That is what I was addressing myself to. That this is a government, the political elite that seems to enjoy so much the trappings of power at the expense of Wanjiku. Leaders create cultures. Leaders can change things. And especially if you claim to be a Christian, then you do things differently. Do you know what attracts us to Christ? Because he did things in very different way. There were Pharisees and Sadducees of the time who wanted to be in flowing robes and looking glorious. What did he do? He changed it. That's why Christ is attractive. So when you have a president who is a Christian, what should they do? Tone down things. Change your budgets. When you hear that the office of the president in 3 months is using billions of shillings translated into about 23 per month, what does that tell you? He's too expensive. And so, while I agree it's a Kenyan challenge, or actually more of African problem, it's actually politicians who have created that to make us believe. What about if those people in power today changed that? You know, at the beginning of Ruto's presidency, I expected him as a Christian president because I'm only using the information I have. That he is a Christian, his wife is a prayerful person. I expected him, first of all, to declare his wealth. Come out, tell us what you owe, you own. After that, create a culture. People around you must do the same. Number 2, declare that corruption will be my biggest target.
He has declared.
No, he hasn't. And not just to declare. It is actually to demonstrate that seriously. Look at the blackouts in this country. Kwani, what happened after this government took over? We didn't used to have all these blackouts, leaking airports and all that. Don't we have people who are employed to constantly continue to improve? So when you see wanton wastage in government, you create actually a culture. And that's why many people want to be politicians. So it is attractive. But I don't think it's attractive to be a politician in London or in the UK. Actually, you are more of a servant. And people can call you back if you're not serving them. And you've heard of ministers who have goofed in public. And they have been sacked quickly. But here, nobody is actually sacked. Look at the mess at the immigration office. That people can apply for their simple passport. And it takes months and months, and the frustrations and the bribery that goes on around there. And we see it even as we walk around there. I want to see if we are seriously Christian, because here we are talking about religion. Hello, please let's be. We would rather say we are not. I would rather deal with somebody who is not than dealing with somebody who says they are, yet they are not. I would like to interrogate the view that every leadership comes from God. That is not purely true. And I know it has been preached to us, so to silence us, that you can't come to power unless God approved of it. The same scripture, if you read it and interpret it well, we also have leaders who are elected through the desires of the people. Those leaders that God appointed, he appointed a king, but at the same time appointed a prophet. God will never give power to one side without check and balance. So don't preach the gospel only one side that favors one. Preach it also the other way. When the kings failed, Saul, for example, is told to annihilate, wipe out, destroy. Then Saul sees these sheep are fat, they are looking nice. Sure, how can I destroy good things?
And they are created by God.
Yeah, and then
God
he
has
hides
put me
them.
in their path, put them in my path.
Yes. Then the prophet comes and says, "What is that I hear making noise somewhere? Oh, we found these things and we thought they're actually good for God." You can see how we play with matters of religion and politics. And that's why the Bible would say to be obedient is then better than a sacrifice. So God is not pleased by sacrifices. And sometimes you see people trying to give to the church in the name of, we are giving to God. Sorry, you're not giving to God. You're doing it just for yourself. Now, there are many ways you can deal with the king, Muga. One, you can meet him privately. If he listens and changes, then that matter is done. And I have done that in the past. I have given one-on-one in a very respectable way when Uhuru Kenyatta was president. But I would also tell him, when I'm with you, you look fine. You look like you're listening. But there's nothing that follows after that. And I tell him, Mr. President, then I have no choice but to tell you.
On the pulpit.
On the pulpit. Because the power you have, yes, belongs to God, but was given through me, my vote. And me, I'm a priest. I'm also held accountable. Whatever I do is, I'm challenged. Therefore, I'll challenge you in that pulpit. And so, it's not that we are disrespectful to the leadership, but it is to tell them what you're doing is wrong. But let me agree with you on something. The biggest group that Jesus Christ faced were actually the religious leaders. Yep. Religion can be created in a way it becomes economic, that people benefit. You remember one girl who was exorcised of a demon by Paul, and the whole village was like, this was a source of income. How could you exorcise the demon? So so they would rather have a girl live with demon but continue to bring money. Is that the kind of gospel we want in Kenya? Actually, the biggest problem in Kenya are not politicians. They are the religious leaders. They benefit from this corrupt system. One, at an individual level. And secondly, at now a corporate level. I went to a meeting, and I will not give you the details. But as I was leaving, I was asked to pass by to pick mafuta ya gari. I told the gentleman, I work for the cathedral. They provide me with a car and a driver. He is actually here waiting for me. No. Lazima upitie pale. Usain, nikamwambia no. If I do that, actually, I will never then question that same government. It was actually the former government. And I looked very stubborn. And I know people find me stubborn. But it's because, why should I receive money? But you know what? These brown envelopes, people receive them at individual levels. one of my clergy at All Saints went for a funeral somewhere in Kirinyaga, and on her way back she receives some M-Pesa. Then anauliza, where did that come from? No, that politician who came had given wachungaji ambao walikuwa kwa mazishi 100,000 to share. And you know why that money is given? So that he has a place in the funeral to address the mourners. Look, the clergy becomes brokers. I went somewhere in Embu one time, and I heard that afternoon, clergy in the area, Anglican clergy, had mobilized people and taking them kwa mheshimiwa fulani, and then they were given millions that they needed to share. Unfortunately now in the sharing, akachukua nyingi kuliko wengine. So clergy are there in collars and they are fighting about handouts. So I want to agree with you. If Jesus came here, he will not chastise first the politician. He will actually chastise.
So it's not a new thing.
Leader. No, it isn't.
It's however, what we have seen religious leaders do from time immemorial.
However, that doesn't make it right. And that's why the prophets were there, to continuously tell the religious leaders as well as the political leadership. It's a power play. It's about influence and how people benefit economically. Remember, both have power and influence. So I can initiate it, and I have the language. I even know, and this pulpit belongs to me.
And you have the people.
Yes, then you chota. But the politician also can introduce it and say, hey, mchungaji, for a long time gari yako haijakuwa na tires. Nothing is given for free.
Hauna shamba ya kanisa.
I wish people would know that. So unfortunately, we are in a paradox. Why should I just come? Well, I read something somebody said. Well, I've had many things people say about my sermon on Sunday. I'm a Rudy, and he has picked from where he left. That says what? That the church doesn't engage.
So that nobody picked up.
So I ask myself, do I have a problem? In fact, some politicians will say, wenena ako na shida nyingi sana. Mimi sina shida yote. Me, I want to be faithful to Christ. I don't know whether you know, when I was leaving All Saints Cathedral, during my farewell, I asked the members, have I ever stolen anything from you?
Yeah.
If I have, come. I want to be faithful at an individual level. I want to be accountable. I wish I would see many of our clergy do such things. So actually, Christ is present. It's only that we don't want to give him room. That's why he's born in the manger. Now, to argue further, when you see now senior bishops and clergy getting appointment in political spaces, while it is good and people go there in the name of God, if you don't perform well, what is the view by the people about religion? How do they view Christianity? They are like, watu wanajua kutuchezea sana.
Same.
It's the same people. So actually I can imagine it's very frustrating now for people to believe, especially in pastors. When you now look, and sorry, I criticize even Christianity. I don't think I just attack politicians. When you see now some of our evangelical churches that take advantage of our people, impoverish them, and do funny things in the name of Christ, you ask, if I was the president, would I allow such a thing? No. Closing churches is part of the regulation by the government. But you know what? Back to the paradox. They're the beneficiaries of the same confusion. Look at what happened in Mombasa with Shakahola and all the others. So where is that matter now? Silent.
It's still somewhere going on.
No.
Digging up.
Sorry. Tell me in 10 years whether anything will have happened. Just challenge the government, the executive. I also challenge the parliament, because they are the ones who create the laws. They debate them. Let them make laws for this country. Laws that are fair, but they are also punitive and strict. Otherwise, The difference between the developed world and the developing is lack of laws and also the implementations, especially the enforcement of those laws. And that's why I think many people had a lot of hope in President Ruto. Why? He came strong as a Christian. He showed that he knows the hustler life. He demonstrated that the problem was actually with Uhuru government, which he was part of, unfortunately. Again, another paradox. He looked like people would believe him. Today, we have a government that suffers trust deficit. And that's why the constant engagement is important. If the church cannot regulate itself, in my view, and I've said this here before, let it be there. Let the government take control of the lives of Kenyans. Otherwise, why would you be charging thieves outside there? And you can't charge pastors who are also thieves. The same law should be applied. You say you have this tag of being a Christian, but the practice is completely different. You're right. However, we need to build a structure around faith and religion. You leave it loose, then it becomes too fluid.
You get Shakahola.
It becomes too fluid. Let me give you the context of England, where now I live. Do you know, I haven't been licensed yet to serve in the church 7 months later.
Why?
By law, I should do 3 safeguarding trainings. I have done 2 online, but because I'm a senior clergy, I must do the 3rd one. You know, the church in generally in the West has suffered because of case litigations, because of the children molestations, people, adults who are vulnerable being taken advantage of, and the church almost went bankrupt. Even my boss had to stand one time in court and broke down when he was told about the evil that is in the church. So today in England, you don't just rush with a collar somewhere and you start preaching or handling people. You can't by law. So
Who licenses
Muga, I hear you when you talk about faith that is not tangible. That's your thing. That's what you believe.
No, that's what I know.
Yes. However, as the government, what do I know? Or the church? The church in England has also established its own legal mechanisms to weed out clergy that are not fit to be in public. And let me tell you, if you're blacklisted in the UK, you can't serve anywhere. Do you know I haven't preached in the UK at all? It's until April when I will do the licensing, the 3rd safeguarding at senior level. In April, then now the Diocese of London will license me. Look, there is freedom to enjoy faith, that which you call something I can't really explain. All right. However, because your personal faith affects mine, I need to protect myself from your faith. Because it may not be the right faith. So faith then becomes quite individual. And people keep talking, faith amongst the Wazungus is too private. Yes, why? Mine can affect you. So I can't play music in a block of flats in the name of I'm a Christian. The law, the police will be there. And there is law that actually will deal with me. So the scaffoldings around faith is very, very important. Otherwise, faith, and you see, and we can talk openly about Islam and what fundamental Islam has done. Fundamental Christianity will do the same. It's evil. And it must be within a law that controls it. And that's why I feel the government has still a very big role to structure. First of all, there are national laws. Like in England, there are national laws. They say this is the guideline in which the church must operate. Then the church now develops policies that implement the law or the act. So both do that, but at the national level, it must be done. Then the church. When matters go to court, the church will be asked. When somebody came and told you they were sexually molested, you see, like in the UK, if somebody came and told me they were sexually molested in church, do you know the first thing I'll tell them? On this one, I'll not guarantee you confidentiality. Kindly give me your contact because you need help. And I'm going to contact a safeguarding officer who will now take over from there. In Kenya, we talk of counseling. But somebody has been molested.
Yeah.
And that's how people get into a lot of problems in African countries, or what you'd call the third world. In the name of counseling, even people get into deeper problems. So you can see there are structures within the church, but also the laws that also protect religion. This government, sorry, unfortunately, it makes it look, we're in a free country, we should enjoy, no regulation. So this is actually becoming chaotic. Unfortunately, they become beneficiaries of that chaos. I wasn't close to it. I must, as a priest, I must be safe enough to tell you, I don't think what you're doing is wrong.
That's right.
And do if you look at my engagement with the government for the years I've done, I'm always on the side of the downtrodden, the poor. I'm always asking, why would you live that kind of life up there? Like I was looking at the police on Sunday in the cathedral, seated there. They look poor. They look needy. They are not even sure about their medical insurances. They are not sure about... There are many things. You can read it.
Yep.
Then on the opposite, you have now the bosses, the politicians. They look opulent. Why should we have such disparities? And so, while it is true, there will be crossing. That will always happen. In the UK, it happens. There's a lot of interaction. However, the government is able to challenge the church and the church is able... So safe spacing is important. You cannot be one. We are not one with government. And it, unfortunately here, the church seems to be in bed with the government.